Welcome everyone to the haunted edition of How to Make Money in Stocks with Investors Business Daily. So happy Halloween to everybody. And we want to let you know that next week, the latest issue of the IBD Extra newsletter, a free newsletter, comes out. So you can find that at investors.com/investingshow.
And this week on the show, we're going to talk about one of the features where you can find some great stocks, the Big Cap 20 list. This is where a lot of institutional money looks to put their money, so it's good to pay attention to this list.
It is. But first, let's take a quick look at the market.
This was a busy week in the market with some hits and misses on earnings. And the indexes also sent some mixed messages. Now, it was good to see the market moving higher, but we ended up getting some distribution days on Friday for both the S&P and the NASDAQ. So that is definitely worth paying attention to.
It definitely is. And let's look what that looks like on the charts. Last Friday, the NASDAQ gapped higher and got back above that 200-day moving average. Another good day Wednesday, but it did pick up its third distribution day, which is a day of institutional selling. It had that on Friday, and the S&P also picked up another one. That was its fifth, and it was the third for the NASDAQ. And as we noted last week, the 50-day line is still below the 200-day, so that shows some underlying technical weakness.
Now, in the Big Picture article on Friday, Paul Whitfield pointed out some negatives that are lurking underneath all of this. Okay, we have a struggling U.S. manufacturing segment. We have lackluster U.S. GDP numbers. We have a hesitant Fed and weak growth out of China.
And as if that wasn't enough, we also have some other unresolved issues that Paul mentioned, including Greek debt, a weak labor participation rate, and a zeitgeist in this current campaign season that is pretty hostile to free markets and capitalism.
How hostile?
Hostile enough.
Okay.
Now, on the bright side, we often get bullish action when there's a lot of doom and gloom in the air, so stay engaged and we'll see what happens next.
All right. Now, stocks that did well on some solid earnings reports included O'Reilly Auto Parts, Alibaba, we have Virgin America, and Apple, which is staying around the 120 price level. We also have Google and Amazon that are continuing to kind of melt higher, you're just slightly going higher. But we also had the ugly for the week. So we had earnings that were bad on PayPal, GoPro, Buffalo Wild Wings, and Twitter.
Right, and then next week we have another big week for stocks that are reporting. Quite a number reporting. So this is a very partial list that we're looking at of stocks that are getting ready to report, which includes Tesla, Facebook, and LGI Homes.
Now be sure to check the Monday edition of the paper for a fuller list of names that are due to report in the IBD earnings calendar. All right, Disney is in a cup-shaped base, Matt, and it's anticipating a $2 billion box office in receipts from its newest addition to the Star Wars lineup.
Which is huge, by the way, right? We looked it up, and there's been only two movies that grossed worldwide over $2 billion. They were both James Cameron films, Avatar
and
Titanic.
That's right. Okay, all right. So this is Star Wars The Force Awakens. There's a lot of money, Matt. Now, let's see. We bring back Carrie Fisher, of course, the original Princess Leia. We have Harrison Ford returning for this edition also, and they have some hot new actors, of course, and lots of interesting new little tech additions. So the Star Wars fans will be very excited in December when the movie comes out.
Right. Now, this is not as much fun to watch as the trailer, but here's a look at Disney's chart. And as Amy mentioned, it is forming a cup-shaped base. And it had this big gap down in the left side of the base, but since then it's been building the right side, and it's within about 7% of a 122.18 entry. So let's see what happens when it reports November 5th.
Now here's another chart. We have TripAdvisor. It's in a rather ugly cup with handle base, but Expedia reported well this week and it zoomed higher. So we'll have to see if a stock in the same group also reports some good numbers.
Now Regeneron is another one to watch. Now none of these are recommendations. We're just pointing out some stocks that are of interest as they get ready to report. And it tried to clear this double bottom area, but it hasn't quite pulled it off yet. So again, let's see what happens when it reports November 4th.
All right, I have started doing a series of earnings watch videos to help remind investors of the earnings dates, and you can access those on ibdtv.investors.com. But be sure to keep a list of names. Put a little yellow sticky
Whatever it takes.
Whatever
Keep
it
the
takes.
list ready.
Right by your computer. So you can be ready to buy if any of these come out of price consolidations on some good volume.
And also keep an eye on other screens we have like the IBD 50, the Big Cap 20, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here. And look for stocks that are getting ready to report and are potentially setting up to break out and climb. So we're all looking for top quality stocks that are near a potential buy point and could offer us a nice profit down the road. So over the next few episodes, we're going to talk about different places where you can find those kinds of stocks, and we'll start with the IBD Big Cap 20.
So if you're a big institutional investor, ask yourself, what would you be looking for?
Not a thinly traded stock.
No, you would not be. So, something that's extremely important is liquidity. If you have millions and millions of dollars to put into a company, you're probably going to zero in on big cap stocks.
That's right. And for individual investors, such big cap names can offer less volatility, and you'll find them in the IBD Big Cap 20, which comes out every Tuesday.
Now, stocks on the Big Cap 20 are companies that must have a minimum market value of $15 billion and trade more than 300,000 shares a day. If you think about it, the pros can't take a stake in a more thinly traded name because they could affect the price too much. They could pretty much cause that price to go
through
up
their own
or
trading,
down.
they cause
exactly.
it, right.
So they really can't do that. So let's say an average daily volume of 400,000 or less has the tendency to be more volatile.
Of course, any stock can be volatile, even these big cap stocks, but something like O'Reilly that trades over 750,000 shares a day and about $200 million a day in dollar volume, that's less likely to see these big swings as a thinly traded stock that, say, trades 100,000 shares and about $1 million per day. So the Big Cap 20 tries to find these big cap names that have institutional liquidity, but they still show signs of a smaller growth stock.
Now, some current stocks on the list that are more liquid names include Starbucks, Facebook, Google, Amazon, and Visa. These are names that the mutual funds, the banks, the hedge funds, the pension funds, and other professional investors can get into, and they can get out of them because of the liquidity that these stocks offer.
And like with many of our lists, the mini charts inside the IBD Big Cap 20 have a nice chart analysis that alerts you to potential buy points and also warning signs as well. For O'Reilly, based on Monday's close, it said it was 2% past a 258.25 buy point in a base-on-base pattern. So that's one you could have highlighted and then evaluated using the routine that we actually went through last week.
Now, Priceline's another big cap stock that's in buying range, and it was in the Big Cap 20 list. Priceline has the well-known William Shatner as its pitchman, who negotiates just the right price. And of course, he's well known for his role as Captain Kirk in Star Trek. And the ads are funny, and they definitely get your attention.
And we also put out a weekly column to go along with the list called Inside the Big Cap 20. And it gives you additional insight into the stocks on this list and how large caps in general are faring.
Now, at Santa Monica Meetup this week, which I volunteer my time at every month, we talked about the safe plays that the institutional investors are doing currently.
Right.
And that includes putting more money into these mega cap stocks. That's what we're seeing. You're seeing the Amazon, you're seeing the Googles, you're seeing the Facebooks. And we often see this historically at the end of a bull market cycle. Not to be confused with they would always have the tendency to put their money in the big cap names. But
Right.
when you don't see the participation of some of the growth stocks, some of the really fast movers that in the market, when you see a lot of money going into those big cap gains, that's typically at the end of a bull market cycle.
That's right. And here's what the most recent IBD Big Cap 20 article looked like. It talks about how we've seen several earnings surprises for Q3 among large cap companies.
Now, earnings for these big names still matter, and as noted in the article, Chipotle fell off of the Big Cap 20 list. Now, remember, it had seen deceleration in its earnings numbers. It had declined from 52% to 47%, then 27%, down to only 11%. You want to see the exact opposite. You want to see an acceleration in earnings and in sales.
Right. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk about some winning stocks that appeared on the Big Cap 20 before they broke out.
How would you like an edge that helps you pick winning stocks faster? An edge that is proven to outperform the S&P 500 by 76% since inception, and that you can take advantage of today without spending a dime. More on that in a minute. Each day, our top market team at Investors Business Daily scans our proprietary stock lists and screens to find superior stocks with the most potential for big gains. They analyze these stocks every step of the way to show you basis, buy points, sell signals, and the right time to take profits. It's about as close to hold your hand investing as you can get. Introducing Leaderboard by Investors Business Daily. For a limited time, you can try all of the premium features Leaderboard has to offer for a full 14 days at absolutely no cost to you. You'll receive unlimited access to all of the time-saving research, powerful investing tools, the leaders list, cut list, and expert analysis you need to develop a winning investing strategy. And it's all 100% free for your first 14 days.
We're going to take a look at some liquid names from the Big Cap 20, and these are names that the pros often take positions in. Now, as always, we're still looking for the strongest fundamental numbers that we can find. We want strong earnings, sales, and we want big volume.
Right, and you also want to look at the mini charts to see if there is anything near a potential buy point. And let's start with Alphabet, which back in the day was still known as Google. Going back to December 2012.
Now, these mini charts are full of useful and vital information, such as the average daily volume. And we can see that Google had 2.6 million in average daily volume. And something that I always take a look at is the accumulation distribution rating, which is an A- at this time, when we were going back and looking at this. So we can see that Google was under some demand from the pros. Now, underneath the mini chart, it says it clears resistance at the 10-week line as it forms a new base.
So this is an example where you could have highlighted Google and done some extra research on it, then looked at the chart. And here's what the base it was forming at the time looked like, and it ended up turning into a cup with handle. Then it broke out a few weeks later and rose more than 60% over the next 14 months.
We'll take that.
I would absolutely
That's good.
take
We'll
that.
take that. Valiant Pharmaceuticals is another stock that hit the Big Cap 20 December the 4th, 2012. This company develops branded drugs to treat central nervous system disorders, pain, and cardiovascular disease.
It's had its own share of pain recently due to multiple things.
Yes, it has, but we're looking at this time period when it made these wonderful gains.
That's right.
Now, the last quarter was up, at this time, was up 74%. That's huge for a drug company, and sales were higher by 47%, and it was working on a base.
And soon after that analysis in the Big Cap 20, Valiant broke out and made a huge move. It rose over 150% in a little over 14 months. And also note how Google and Valiant took off around the same time. And that's what happens in a strong uptrend. The leaders move, and that's why you want to be ready with a good watch list.
You have to be ready. And Monster Beverage is another name that hit the Big Cap 20 October 28th, 2014. Now, as we noted, it was in buying range. It was 3% above a 95.03 buy point. The company's well known for their energy drinks, and they have sponsored some pretty crazy people. Now, one such name is Ballistic B.J. Baldwin. And here we see him riding his trophy truck through a Baja town, kicking up dirt and sand.
Right, and as we see with a lot of Monster's ads and their high-octane commercials, he has a few admiring fans cheering him on. So
Matt,
whatever Monster was
Matt,
doing...
we're talking about good-looking chicks?
Yes, we are. Okay. So whatever Monster was doing, it was certainly energizing the stock.
All right, no comment. Monster broke out of a cup-shaped base, and it ran up to a peak July 31st for a gain of 60%. So we've shown several examples from the Big Cap 20 list that went on to make some nice runs. This is one IBD screen that you definitely want to pay attention to, and it's in the paper every Tuesday.
And we have many other screens that do the same thing based on different criteria, and we'll start talking about more of those in the episodes coming up in the next few weeks.
I'll be teaching a Level 2 workshop November the 14th at LAX, so come and join me.
And you can get all the details on that and sign up for the IBD Extra, which again comes out next week at investors.com/investing show.
Okay, see you next week, everybody.